Hello, everybody. Hope everybody is fine. Oops. Welcome aboard. Everything's all right here. Let me just put the chat. This and this. And here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to this Shortwave radio live show. This is a show about radio. Of course, we talk about radio in all its forms: shortwave, medium wave. We tend to try to stay below 30 megahertz, but there's sometimes we go above and we go at other frequency ranges. It's radio, and radio is a radio. So nice to have everybody here. We are live twice a week on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 0 UTC. Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. 20 hours UTC. And sometimes Sunday, sometimes not. It's not an official thing, but it's really nice to be here when I can. There's a beautiful chat room with amazing people. I think this is one of the best gang of radio fans in the world. They're really, really amazing, and it's always fun to have that nice gang from I don't know how many countries. I never counted. I should have done a list of all the countries that have popped up here on the chat room watching my show from around the world. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, and I'm still amazed. I look at the amount of people showing up and from where they are. It is something that is always amazing for me, and really, really a lot of fun. So nice to have all of you here. Of course, you need a Gmail account in order to get into the chat. As for the other place where you can be, and it's another real cool place, it's the Facebook group. We have a fantastic Facebook group, 820, like almost 830 members now, which is crazy. It's like, really more and more people are showing up there, and it's another great place. People are sharing what they're listening to, pictures, videos of, what they're doing with radio, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's definitely a great place to hang out. And, when the party's over here, you continue to party on the Facebook group. I participate quite often. There's a lot of posting there. We're alert on everything that's happening, what's to listen to. And I know that people just love the group. It's one of the best groups out there where people are very, very nice. So official SWL channel is the group name. Same name as the channel here. And today we are going to try to help the newbies out there. There's a lot of them, actually. I am amazed at the amount of people that bought their first shortwave radio And some are thrilled and having fun. Some are kind of sad and not sure because they're not hearing a lot. And so we're going to try to help and give some tips for the new listener. What does the new listener need to know? What can he do to help with listening to some of those signals out there? And particularly in 2020, it's a little complicated with what's happening. So we're going to try to help out there for all of you that have their first shortwave radio today. I'm having a vodka cranberry juice. So cheers, everybody. I wanted to get some beer. And what happened is with the International Radio Report show recording at 1 p.m., the editing, and then I had a little something to take care of, and then came back, sent the show, all of that. I ended up pretty much not having the time to go out and get beer. So I thought, well, okay, no beer. I'm going to concentrate on having vodka and cranberry juice. Why not? So, hey, everybody, welcome aboard. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. That's the northeast part of North America. And hope that you'll have a good time today. Mark Cope, WA5153 SWL in Dallas, Texas. Nice to have you here. Bobby Burgess in Morgan City, Louisiana, WA5107 SWL. Randall Klontz from Chicago. Nice to have you here. Bobby Burgess, nice to have you on board, and he's happy with his RSP1A and MLA30 plus antenna combo. What else do we have? Yep, absolutely. Like Mark says, RSP1A plus MLA30 together, you've got a killer setup. It works great, and you've got a really nice setup for the hobby of shortwave radio listening and wideband also, because if you you get yourself some VHF, UHF antenna, you can go to 2 gigahertz with the SDR play devices. Rob, nice to have you on board from Phoenix, Arizona. Matt MDK2 from Colorado says sunny but mild. Denver 66. We had some snow today. Not enough to stay on the ground, but I got to tell you, for the 8th of May, it's crazy, and we are actually in I was reading a weather article. They were saying that we are in a very unusual extended period of cold weather, and that even through the month of May, they're not expecting that we're going to have a lot of warm weather here. So just to give you an idea, right now, because it's sunny, so it's like plus 8 Celsius. It's supposed to be 18 today, and that's the normal for this time of year. We're 8 degrees today. I mean, tomorrow I think it's going to be 5 or 6. This is really cold, and I mean crazy. And the trees are starting to have their little green leaves. So wow. What else do we have? Yeah, the Radio Argentina exterior. This is an old. The picture I put for the live stream is an old RAE QSL card from the 80s, sometime in the 80s, if I remember well, when they were audible on direct from Argentina. Matt says 6 meter currently open between Colorado and Alberta. Whoa, this is nice. Liam, nice to have you here. Liam Conlon, nice to have you on board. And what else do we have? Jeff Williams, nice to have you on board from Southwest Cornwall. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you on board. René Charbonnier from the Netherlands, PA0057SWL, nice to have you here, my friend. Don Warner, Nice to have you from Ohio. Kevin Janapalo from the Jersey Shore. WS2H. Artist Alley Crafter's Kitchen. Nice to have you here from Massachusetts. And I will not stop you from buying radios. Buy more radios. Old Radio Man. Nice to have you here from Northeast Tennessee. Jerry DX. Nice to have you on board. Trond. Nice to have you here from Norway. Nick Amandel from Romania. PLF Radio, bonjour et bienvenue de la France. Hi, Brawler. Nice to have you here from Arkansas. Levi Nathan, shalom from Israel. Nice to have you on board. Brent in Brockville, Ontario, Canada. Crittenden Tuttle 4. It's nice to have you here. I lost my little spot. Okay, here we go. So everything is all right. And our friend here is KJ7NUX. Ecadarius, nice to have you on board. Keegan, XN80Xer, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. And by the way, I didn't check the email. So we have checking in through email. Elizabeth from Regina, Saskatchewan saying hello. We have Robert from Roswell, New Mexico. And we have Stephen checking in through email from Florida. So nice to have you here. And Stephen is starting out about his first shortwave radio, a Texan PL660. And he says that he's been receiving a few stations, but looking forward to the newbie show today, hoping to learn how to use the radio even more. So cool. That is nice. We do have, I am amazed that so many people actually are getting on shortwave radio just because of, you know, what they see here and what they, it's a lot of fun. Honestly, I would not have thought that many people would actually have got into the hobby because of this channel, actually. So, Keegan XN80Xer, nice to have you here. Steve Miller, nice to have you on board. Good afternoon. Lou Spelta, nice to have you here from Australia, Lou. Cool. Steve Miller is Arizona, Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Rufus Newt, nice to have you on board from the Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Snowy Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Augustin Bernard, nice to have you here. Augustin from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. James Farley, nice to have you here. Mark Rich, good afternoon. Says good evening from lockdown Europe. Very warm spring day here, West England. Ice cold cola and feet up with YouTube. Cool. Taking it easy. That's the life. Especially now that there's not a lot to do except radio and YouTube and stuff like that. Here, the lockdown for the city of Montreal has been extended until May 25th. It was supposed to be May 11th, then May 18th, and now it's May 25th. There's just too many people getting the virus and dying from it here on the city of Montreal. It's kind of a little crazy. And it's like it's kind of at a level, but it's not coming down. It's like staying at that high level. So they're not taking any chances. John Pickney, nice to have you here from Oak Hill, Virginia. W3XWT. Ken, nice to have you here from England. WOHP1390. Rick, nice to have you here. W8PRR. Nice to have you on board from Ohio, I believe. M. Ditmar, nice to have you on board. Mark, AB0CW in Cincinnati. Are you a CW fan? David says, official shortwave channel, the voice of international friendship in radio. Cool. Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The guy that's always alerting me about pirates, which is cool. Nice to have you here, Brian. Matt says, oops, been on for 4 minutes. I had it muted. I knew you didn't want to listen to me anymore. Dijon says, good evening from Bavaria, Germany. Nice to have you here, my friend Dijon. This week flew by so fast. That's good. That's good. David, KJ4CMY, says, got his Radio Wow R108 radio. Love it. Thanks for the tip on buying it. Cool. It is a nice radio for the price. Really, really cool. Rob says, raises hand, says newbie. So I think there's a lot of them out there. Scott Haley, did this in high school. Why'd I stop? Oh, well, back now. Well, sometimes life has this way of bringing us to something else, and we forget about our hobbies and what we do and, the fun that we had. And someday you fall on something, I don't know how many amateur radio operators said, you know what? I found your videos while searching on YouTube, and you gave me that spark that I needed to get back into amateur radio, and I had not done ham radio in years. And I'm sure there are some shortwave listeners out there that listened a long time ago, left the hobby, found my videos, and kind of looked at them and said, oh man, I need to get back into the hobby. Bob Laporte, nice to have you here, Bob. De Gatineau, nice to have you here. VE2033 SWL. Pretty cool. John Pickney says, I might have to try vodka and cranberry juice sometime. It's pretty good. It's very good. Tom DXer, nice to have you here from the lower Hudson Valley, New York. Going to get 1/2 inch of snow tonight. Wow. Crazy. Crazy for the month of May. BKS 9900, nice to have you here from Romania. Northern Dawn, nice to have you here. Just watched the Queen Mark VE Day anniversary. Yeah, it's that time of year. Scott Haley says that SDR is a far cry from my dad's SB600. Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you here from Greenfield Park, Quebec. I added a little something, a little surprise, Sheldon, to the 2 Sunday mornings International Radio Report Show. And I'm going to tell you, listen up to the end. NL13851 from the Netherlands. Nice to have you on board. David Snyder from Staten Island, New York. Pretty cool. John Pigney, nice to have you here. Angela Cheryl Croft, nice to have you here. Got our DX394 today. Love this radio. The that DX394, every time I see one, still remember that day in 1990s when I was out of a job. I didn't have a lot of money, and they had one on sale at a Radio Shack downtown for like, I don't know, it was like $60 or something. And I remember thinking, well, $60 isn't that much money, but when you're out of a job and you have no money, it's a lot of money. So I couldn't afford it. I still, to this day, think, oh man, $60, I would have jumped on that DX394. Legion says, snow. We had 25 Celsius. Andy RC, nice to have you on board. Week 7, almost of lockdown. Lots of e-skip on 10 meter tonight. Cool. Cool. What else do we have? Bobby Burgess says, for wideband, I got new telescopic whip antenna. For an Inmarsat L-band, I got a GPS patch antenna from SDR Kits. Cool. You're all set up? You're all set up. Lauren Don says it will drop to 1 Celsius overnight on Sunday. Yeah. I saw some -2, -1, -2 degrees next week. Crazy. Rifleman 336. Nice to have you on board, Alex N8UCN. WA101 WA8121 SWL. Southwest Ohio. NDRC's in Cornwall, southwest of the UK. Mike, WDX50 from Northwest Arkansas. Nice to have you here. Tom the Extra says, just keep sending that cold air down this way for the next 4 months, please. David says, we are having cool but shirt sleeve weather in central Georgia. Nice to be here. Rob says, 18. Wow. It's 99 Fahrenheit this afternoon. Oh, man. That's hot. Esteban from the Canary Islands. Until a few minutes, listening to Radio Romania. Emission targeted to North of Africa. Cool. What do we have? Jim. Nice to have you here. Jim F. in Vancouver, BC. VE7COJ. Eric Cottrell. Nice to have you here, my friend. Hope you are well under the circumstances. Let me just try to find... So he's getting ready for the Nage. Kimberly, K6YYL. Nice to have you here from California. 89 Fahrenheit, 31 Celsius so far today. Well, Matt says we've gotten snow every May with one exception since 2013. Let's say that here it's not exceptional, but we don't have a lot of snow. We actually rarely have snow in May. It doesn't happen very often, but it's not impossible. I was looking at the, when you look at the Weather Channel, you have the, on the website, you have the extremes of temperature for the day. And one of the data was, the biggest amount of rain and biggest amount of snow we had on a fixed day. I think it's today or tomorrow. What date was it? I think it was like 1983 or something, or 93. We had 26 centimeters of snow, almost a foot of snow on 8th of May, that's very exceptional. But man, crazy. Camworks, nice to have you here from Germany with HF Plus and RSP1A and MLA 30 Plus. Cool. John Wright from East Tennessee. Good DX to all. Everybody saying hello to Elizabeth and Robert. Mike, WDX50, supposed to be close to an all-time cold temperature in Fayetteville, Arkansas tonight. The record is 32. We're in the record zone here too, where I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the record temperature is like, -1. And tonight is going to be 0. So that's very close to record temperatures. Crazy. Really crazy. Brent says we're having snow here too in Ontario, 2 degrees Celsius. Crazy. Graham Taplin, nice to have you here from Milton, Ontario, Canada. Eric Cottrell is having a bottle of kombucha. Cyberflyer 1 from the UK. Golf Bravo 1063RB. Zachary Owens, nice to have you here from Virginia. Hunter is from Munich. Nice to have you here, Hunter. Icadarius, how is Paul the cat? Oh, he's well. He's really well. He is sleeping so there's some sunshine, so he decided to go and sleep in the living room floor next to the window where there's that square of sunshine. And it's so funny because he sleeps there. But of course, the sun moves, so the sun on the floor is moving. Then when it's about halfway gone, he gets up like all sleepy, moves to the square, and gets back down and continues sleeping in the sunshine. It's just kind of funny, actually. But yes, he is well. He's well fed. Brian Penny has been sending some cat food. And so I don't think he's going to have any problem. I had a joke, Brian, this week. I was talking to a friend and I was talking about you sending some cat food. And I told my friend, I said, well, if something happens and there's no food anywhere, well, me and Paul the cat have enough cat food for a little while. Peter, nice to have you here from snowy western Pennsylvania. Tristan Mills, nice to have you here, Tristan, in Seattle. Just getting back into shortwave listening after many years. When you've not been listening for years, it's kind of a shock because if I would not have listened to shortwave from, say, 1985 until today, I think the first thing is the shock of, wow, compared to back then, there's not that much. And the noise is crazy, So, but there's still some stuff, and there's still a lot of it. I'm not one of those that says there's nothing on shortwave, like that pirate, nothing on shortwave. I'm more of there's still a lot on shortwave. It's just that it's a little more difficult because some areas don't have as many stations targeting them. So when you're not in a target zone, well, usually signals are weaker. Mix that in with there's more noise, and it gets more difficult to listen to stuff. That's when going to the park with a radio is great, because you go to the park and you notice, oh wow, look at all the signals. If I do a ETM or a Z tuning mode scan on the CountyCom GP5 inside my house, let's say I'm in the kitchen, and it gets 10 stations. Well, if I go to the park where it's quiet and do the same scan at the same time, it's going to get 40 stations and 45 stations because the noise isn't there. So a lot of the stations that are washed out here are actually listenable in the park. Redolva 65, nice to have you here from New York City. Actually, one of the things that always amazes me when I go to Perry Island is if conditions here were like there, it's easy to listen to almost any broadcast that has a decent signal and listen to the program. Like BBC would be an easy target, where here it's actually still a challenge, even though I do get from time to time some good signals. Let's check it out, by the way. 11810. Nothing much there. 12095. It's a little weak, kind of weak signals. I don't know if it's me, but I had the impression earlier that the signals were a little weaker than usual. Estrella Garcia, nice to have you here. Our full man 336 got a question. How much computer do you need to run the SDR play? I'm looking at picking up a cheap or used laptop to run it. You don't need that much, actually. I wanted to answer back to your email about that. And to answer, I'll answer here anyways. So for the messenger, yes, you can send in your utility logs with great pleasure. And anybody that is a member of the CIDX messenger, the CIDX club, and read my utility column, if you do listen to utility stations, if you have logs, if you have stations that you want to send me, the email is at the top of the column. It's officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. Send me your logs. I will be happy to add them to the ones that I have on the page. It is, and try to kind of, send it at the latest, maybe around the 25th of the month, something like that. So I have time to add them to the column. But do send me your utility logs. I would be happy to include them in the messenger column of utilities. I've asked a few times, had nobody send me anything, but maybe I should do the call again in my column. It's it's open to everybody. If you want to send in any logs of utilities, please do. Second, not that much, honestly. To give you an idea, it's running right now on my old Toshiba laptop. My old Toshiba laptop is a Core i5 Intel from 6 years ago. Now, it is still a powerful PC for today compared to a lot of the stuff, but I've run the SDR Play on an old Core 2 Duo from 2008, actually, and it runs. Now, it's not the ideal way of running it because, of course, the CPU usage is high. But any decent uh, laptop today, and I mean, you don't need to have that much power. But I think even some of the low end new laptops today would run this fairly well. The power of the PC will decide one major thing. So you have the waterfall here, and SDR Play devices can actually show you up to 10 megahertz of spectrum. If your PC is not strong enough, it might not be capable of showing you all 10 megahertz because it asks too much power. Here, if I put 10 megahertz spectrum, it's a stretch. It's almost there. I can almost see it. If I put it here, I can change it right now and go to 10 megahertz spectrum. So here's the 10 megahertz spectrum here. So there's a little bit missing on the edges, but I have from 8 megahertz all the way to past 16 megahertz. I got a good 8 megahertz of spectrum capable here. I have the full 10 on my new laptop that is more powerful. But like I said, you don't need that much. You don't need that much power to run this, actually. So something recent and decent should actually run it. Northern Dawn, a couple of medium wave frequencies locally got turned off a week ago. Oh, really? Wow. What stations were they? Liam, Countycom radio, is it any good? I mean, it's great, except for no keypad makes it tough to tune around. But I gotta say, it's probably the best for scanning stations. The ETM scan is wonderful, and I use it mostly for that. Because if you have to tune frequency ranges, it's kind of crazy. Terry Cook, KF7BQ, nice to have you on board. Shortwave Fanatic, I like that. Nice to have you on board. Where are you located, Shortwave Fanatic? Kathy Atkins, nice to have you here from Connecticut. Fred Newland, nice to have you here. Cranberry and vodka is a great drink. In Sweden, they call that drink Wolf's Bite. Oh, I like the name. So I'm having a Wolf's Bite. I like that. Cranberry and vodka. I don't remember where I got that the first time. I know it has a name here, but I don't remember what's the name that they give the drink. But I like Wolf's Bite. I really like that name. I think it was at a bar somewhere. They had like the worst beer ever and didn't know what to drink. And I look at the guy and said, okay. He says, want a beer? I said, well, no, you have no good beers here. And he looked at me strange, like, what do you mean I don't have any good beers? Everybody's drinking. Yeah, it doesn't mean because people drink beer that it's good beer. And so I looked, and the guy said, we have a few drinks, and I think he showed me a list of little drinks that he had, and one was vodka cranberry juice, and I thought, can't be bad. Let's try that. So, David says, David says when the crisis is over, he's going to look like a hippie. We'll all look like that. So, Astrologic Garcia, nice to have you here. Shortwave Fanatic just received his PL880. Happy you are doing a live stream for the noobsies. Cool. James Bowers, nice to have you here from New Hampshire, KC1ENJ. Yeah, snow and leafy trees are not that great. Ronald, nice to have you here. Question: would you say that the GP5 SSB is as sensitive on shortwave as the XH Data D808? I would say they're quite close. I don't think I've compared any of those two together, eh? I need to do that and do videos. But the GP5 SSB I think is as sensitive because it's a pretty good radio. It receives very well the GP5. Of course, the XH Data is much better because it has a keypad, makes it easier for tuning. But I would say they're pretty close. Pretty close. What else do we have? I'm going to try to get down a little faster here. So what do we have? What do we have? PLF radio, what's the big signal? The first part of the screen, and I'm afraid I've changed something. But if you're talking about that thing here, that's kind of I don't know. It's been there a lot lately. It's some kind of radar thing, some kind of a radar thing, or some kind of digital mode. I don't know, but I've seen it in the lower part of 6 or 7 megahertz and across a lot of the spectrum of shortwave in the past 6-7 months. So I'm not really sure what that is. It sounds somewhat like some DRM, but it's very wide, and I don't think that's DRM actually. Matambali, nice to have you here from Colorado, hearing some FT8 on 10 meters. Nissan Greenwich, nice to have you on board. Was listening to Radio Thailand English in Dublin an hour ago. Couldn't believe what a strong signal. Cool. No, it's not a relay. It's direct. If you were listening to 9920, I believe, is the frequency. That is direct from Thailand. Radio Thailand does not relay its transmissions by any other ways. All of their transmissions are direct from Thailand, which makes it impossible almost here in the East Coast of North America, unfortunately. Mark Rich says, was wondering if I could jump on the PL880 or wait for the mythical PL990. Maybe something around 150 euros. Yeah, the PL990 is going to be more than that. The PL990 right now is on what we see for those that are selling some of it. It's like in the $350 US range. So it's very expensive. Get the PL880. And the PL990, I like a lot of things, buying a new shortwave radio that we haven't heard much about yet is somewhat of a, taking a risk, because it doesn't mean because it's $300 that it's a good radio. It's going to be important to have some people test. Epimundo, nice to have you here from Argentina. Gaëtan Belil, bonjour. Toujours un plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous from Sainte-Sophie, Quebec. Archer's Other Crafter's Kitchen, okay. John Pickney. If it isn't on 3-phase 4160, 4160 volt AC, it's only QRP. Let me check it out here. I'm going to go check the CB band. If there's anything there showing me that some activity is existing. Check it out a little bit. Vince. Salut, Vince. We'll say hi to you with my other account in 5 minutes. Your phone. Wasn't able to find it if I could see it. I'll need to try to find where or how it's blocked. I kind of don't see. I tried to find in the because when I go to my options for managing, I don't find anything special, Vince. So I don't know. I don't know. Try it again, anyways. I'll see if it works. Noodles KC2JLI. Nice to have you on board. What else do we have? Greg Esser. Nice to have here, Greg, from Southwest Florida. 80 degrees today. Perfect. What else do we have? Rick. Nice to have you here, Rick Satter. Camagazine 1976. Nice to have you here from snowy Michigan. What else do we have? Esteban says, is there a technical name for the repetitive melody the broadcast channel emits just before or after their regular transmissions, similar to the adjustment charts and TV broadcasts in the past? It's called an interval signal. So stations used interval signal so that you can find them. I got that question so many times of why do stations have a repetitive, song or sound before they get on the air, and it's simple. Today, it's we have our digital readout receivers, so it's easy to just punch the frequency in and tune in the station. But there's a lot of people with analog radios, and especially in the past, it was even more important because a lot of people had analog radios. And so, in order to find your broadcast, you would actually tune just before the broadcast started, and you would find the station by that interval signal so that you know that you were listening to the correct station. So interval signals were there to, and are still there to help you find your broadcast if you are using analog radios, for example. Then you know that you're listening to the correct one. So interval signal. What else do we have? Rick says, I keep at least 2 months supply of dog food for Sally, Becky, and I can use a little shortage, maybe sugar be better next time doctor visit in June. Becky and I use a little shortage. Erica Trell, use TuneIn Radio for streaming. Mickey Delmage, nice to have you on board. Says nice RAE QSL posted. I see someone got an EQSL from them this week. They did not give the address they used, but it was from the WRMI relay. I sent a reception report to RAE when they started relays. There's a little bit of sporadic e-skip, guys, because I'm hearing some activity on 27025. So that means that there's a little bit of activity in the higher frequencies right now. So when they started on WRMI, they were asking for reception reports, and I sent a reception report, but I did not understand that they wanted to have. You don't accept that you just write down what you're listening to. They want a audio recording or a link to a YouTube video showing the reception. And I did not see that, so I just jotted down like a regular reception report. They never replied back. So I'm going to try it again this week when I listen to one of the relays of RAE via WRMI. Keith Caper, nice to have you here. Says 60-meter band. I got a beeping noise. Is that a beacon? What frequency exactly are you hearing beeping noise? And is it a wide signal, or is it just, does it actually vary? Because it's very difficult to know what you're listening to sometimes, because there could be local interference that, a lot of electronic devices create all sorts of these things and noise and beeps and whatever. So, yeah, have a specific frequency it's on. Lee Burkett, nice to have you here, Lee. Says, been celebrating our European Victory Day, 75th anniversary. Cool. That must have been some really, really amazing times for anybody that was a radio hobbyist back then in World War II. Matambali here in California on Channel 6. John Pickney says, I'm not, if I'm not using a desktop PC for streaming, it's the Comcast box. Okay, for streaming stuff. What else do we have? Fred Newland, I saw somewhere here just got I saw someone here just got a DX394. It's got a SO239 antenna connector. How would you and others recommend your favorite way to connect an antenna to that jack? Well, if you bring a, like a wire antenna from outdoor to this, then you would have a coax and have a PL 259 connector on it. On the MLA30, I don't know if I have one that is unused here. I don't think, oh yeah, there's one. Well, this one is a BNC, but I do have adapters for the MLA30. So this one is a BNC to SMA for the MLA30, and I've got also the ones that adapt to that SO239, which is a PL259 to MLA. For a long time, when I had a radio and I would just want to try it a little bit with something, I would just shove the the wire antenna at the center directly. But of course, having proper connectors is better. Mike, WDX50. Anyone you're running SDR software on a Mac? Quite a few on there are using Macs with SDRs. Brent, speaking of haircuts, my wife asked me to cut her hair twice, and she's still talking to me. What else do we have? Lee Thompson, nice to have you on board. WA8QFE. Keith Kepler says in San Diego, I got some sort of beeping noise. Yeah. Like I said, we need the frequency. Is it on a specific frequency? Do you hear it on multiple frequencies? Because you could have, it's very difficult. It could be a local interference. It could be some signal that you're having. Radio Romania, 11850 and 13650. Not super strong today. 13650, 11850, Radio Romania. In English, Shortwave Fanatic is in Florida. Cool. What else do we have? Let me go down. Donald Hosmer says Radio Romania, S9 plus 10 in Michigan. W8SWL. Here, Matt, so you're checking channel 6. I have weak it's not very strong. There was some skip. I can hear it by the accent, but it was not very strong. Not like it could be. You know, sometimes it's better. Anybody receiving 3940 kilohertz? For you guys in Europe? Rifleman 336 got a Great Lakes Brewing Company Elliot Ness Amber Lager. Cool. Joe Rodman from Chicago. Nice to have you here. Eric Cottrell says vodka cranberry, also called a Cape Codder. I wonder if they didn't call it the Cape Cod where I was, now that you mentioned that. Radio for Peace International. Bonjour et bienvenue. Toujours un plaisir. Ça fait longtemps que je n'ai pas écouté vos programmes. Il faut que je regarde l'horaire de WRMI pour écouter. Radio for Peace on the French language programs on WRMI. Victor Osorio, nice to have you here from Honduras. Pretty cool. Whiskey sour, 7-Up, 2 tablespoons sugar, seltzer, Dewar's orange juice. Dejan, when Deutsche Welle still transmitted on shortwave, did you listen to them often? When they had their programs, in the 80s, 90s, when they were actually having even programs transmitted to North America, I used to listen to Deutsche Welle quite often. Absolutely, I enjoyed their news and commentary and different programs they had. It was It was one of the stations I would listen to quite often, actually. Ray Kelly, Nova Scotia, nice to have you here, and he's hearing 9920. What else do we have? Ricardo Silva, nice to have you here from Portugal. What else do we have? Yeah, that's, I believe, the name that they had. Brian Penny says vodka and cranberry juice called a Cape Cod. I think that's the name they had in the bar. But I like Wolf's Bite. And cranberry and grapefruit is called Sea Breeze. Vodka, cranberry, and orange is called Madras. So you bartended in your youth. Aha. That is... that's nice. So I'm having a Cape Cod, but I still like Wolf's Bite better. I think it's a cool name. JDX, what do you think of the ICOM IC705? Anybody have an opinion? Ricardo Silva, yeah. Florian Schneider from Kraftwerk, absolutely, which is the International Radio Report's intro song. Is a Kraftwerk song, which is called Radioactivity. And we did talk a little bit about that on the show, as we are using the Kraftwerk song for the beginning of the show. They were totally they were pioneers of the electronics age for sure. Dijon, my MLA-30 left China. I hope it arrives well and doesn't get stuck at customs. Gaetan Belil, when it comes to alcohol, I am conventional. A good Molson X beer satisfies me well. However, a good Ricard pastis and as an aperitif appeals to me. Yeah, that's not bad before eating. A friend of mine is on likes Ricard's pastis. Every time we organize a supper, she always has that. She always makes us a little ricard just before we eat. It's her thing. John Pickney says there used to be a pirate calling itself WLIS. We love interval signals. Play nothing but interval signals. I'd like to have one of those today. It would be so cool to have one today. We love interval signals. I would listen for hours to a pirate broadcasting different interval signals. Hint, hint. Any pirate out there? You could get your interval signals off of the internet. There's a lot of them. There's even some files on YouTube with like, dozens and dozens of. Yitabellis says, I like my Texan R9012. He's surprising. Oh, absolutely. Very surprising for what it is. Vince, just tried my art account. No message appears on the group, so I guess I'm stuck with this temporary account. I'm going to try to find out. I haven't been able to find out exactly. I haven't seen anything that like points to you. Maybe I went too fast and I didn't see it. I'm going to try to look again later and see. It's very weird. Very weird. John Pickney, long ago, the political clandestine La Voz del Cid had a beautiful yet haunting, creepy sounding interval signal. Man, that brings back memories of a long time ago. Mad Reader DXer, with regards interval signals, also there was no internet back then to check what you were listening to. For sure. We needed to have something. PLF Radio says there's some 50 megahertz e-skip, according to the website. Ah, that's cool. I've had, I usually what I do is I go and I check like, channel 6. There's really nothing much here happening, so I don't think that 6 meters is open. Usually there on the CB band, there's a lot of activity when 6 meters is open. Radio for Peace International. At the moment, we are broadcasting on 15770 towards North Africa. So cool. What else do we have? John Pickney says 158 watching, only 37 likes. Something's not computing. Kathleen, nice to have you here from Germany. Mr. Lucky Train, nice to have you on board. What else do we have? All right, there's Ali Crafter's Kitchen. Did you ever find out what the hazardous material was that prevented shipment from your antenna? Yeah, the seller came back to me and he said that the antenna includes a battery, and he's wondering if it's not the battery that they didn't want to ship because of the battery that's included. Glenn Zeckman, nice to have you here. X80Xer has WWV on 10 megahertz S3 out of S9 on the Ethon Grand Edition satellite. Rufus Newt has 15770 loud and clear. My radio videos, nice to have you here. Bob, WA6PHN from San Diego. What else do we have? David in Barcelona, nice to have you on board from Spain. Had a lot of fun this week with the Chinese BXCRA special station activity. Oh, the one we talked actually last week on the International Radio Report, the Chinese special events. Although I managed to achieve a grand total of 2 FT8 QSOs. Cool. So everybody's saying that 15770 is a strong signal. Cool, RFPI radio. Oh, really? So because of COVID, it's mostly music. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to get things going with. We're actually it's thanks to me being a little technical that we were able to continue the international radio report with Sheldon, because for a while when all of this came through, it's like, okay. I listened to CKUT on Sunday morning. The Latin Times show is mostly music, and Free Kick after us is mostly repeats of the past. So it's kind of cool that we've been, that I put my brain up to see how I could do it. It's not perfect audio, but it's decent enough audio to have a show going on. And so I'm happy that we are continuing this, and for sure for the International Radio Report. For those that don't know, International Radio Report is a show about radio. It's 30 minutes at 14:30 UTC Sunday. That's 10:30 a.m. Eastern. It's on a local station here in Montreal called CKUT. It's on 19.3 FM. But you can stream online with your favorite app, like TuneIn and so on, or you could go to ckut.ca and click the stream button. And if you've missed shows or want to listen to the past shows, you can click the archive. It has 3 months of shows. So International Radio Report, there's also a nice Facebook group with that. If you are a fan of the show, the Facebook group actually has a lot of news about radio that we don't always have the time to talk about. 30 minutes goes by so fast that it's not always easy. Also, don't forget that there's something that is the CIDX Club. And the CIDX Club has a nice little magazine, that electronic publication that comes out every month. And it's a really nice little publication to get. So why not check it out? And you can ask for a sample copy. Sorry, here I got distracted. Ask for a sample copy of the messenger to Sheldon at cidxclub@yahoo.com. And if you like it, $10 a year, $25 for 3 years. Not expensive. We got a really big 93-page edition this month, and there's a lot of info in there, including Brian Penny has a nice column for those that are new to the hobby. He's got a very beautiful column explaining, shortwave for people that are starting out. I have the utility column. Mickey Dalmage in Alberta has the very interesting QSL column. There's also the log section. There's tons of information about amateur radio, technical stuff. We have Antarctic news, which is something very, very difficult to find, and it's nice to have that information about radio and in the Arctic, Antarctic regions, and a lot of stuff. It's a great publication to check out if you like radio, and it's electronic publication you get in your email every month. Very, very nice and very, very professional. Gaetan Berlin says, unless you want to become a super shortwave connoisseur, I think the XH Data E808 is very satisfying. And an RSP1A paired with an MLA 30 Plus, it does the job. Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very nice. John Luhy, nice to have you here. Beautiful sunshine, 15 degrees on the Alaska Highway. Cool. Victor Osorio, 15770, great signal in Honduras. With just a telescopic antenna and the Texan PL600. Cool. Cool. Yeah, the 3940 frequencies is in Europe. PLF radio is in France. So there could be a pirate in Europe, something like that. Anambali, Cape Codder versus Wolfsbite. Probably depends on the vodka cranberry juice ratio. Half and half is a Wolfsbite. And you're probably going to die from a wolf's bite if you do so. And John Pickney, when Virginia reopens on June 10th, I'm going to take the Forerunner to Best Buy to have the wiring installed for the HF rig. Kathleen, I wonder if we can receive Radio Romania on 13650 with a small PCB antenna for FID. It's a very strong signal in general. Eric Cottrell says, looking forward for the ICOM IC705. Will be released in a couple of months. So, kind of interesting. Dijon, what was the station that you would listen the most back in the day? I really enjoy your anecdotes from the old radio times. I had a fixation on Nordic countries a lot for some reason. I don't know why. There was something about receiving Norway and Sweden and Finland and all of that. Like, for some reason, that was something that I focused a lot about. So I would say in a normal day, I would wake up in the morning. A typical 80s day for me would be I would wake up in the morning around 8 a.m., which was, so let's put ourselves in the summer, 8 a.m., which is 12 UTC. The first thing that I would tune in probably was Radio Australia. Radio Australia would be the station I would tune in. And after Radio Australia, I know there was a Radio Sweden broadcast that would be for North America in early mornings. I would tune to the to Radio Sweden, like around 13:30 UT, something like that. Also, there was, I believe, Radio Finland also had a broadcast. In the Sunday times, there was Radio Norway that I would listen, because Radio Norway was very unique. Station was in English on Sundays only, which was weird. During the daytime, depending on what time of year, there could be, I would probably jump into like Radio Moscow. Radio Moscow was pretty easy to listen to almost all day and night. So Radio Moscow was one of those stations I would tune in from time to time, see what they were talking about. I would go through different stations, and there were so many stations back then that I'd like to. I would listen to Swiss Radio International. I like that. A typical evening. A typical evening. In the 80s, I was a lot of I'd say I was more of searching for anything new more than listening to a program in particular. If I would be in the 80s today at the age that I am, and that with the interest that I have, I would be more of a program listener. Even though I would be tuning around a lot. But typical evening, I remember when I got my first full-time job, one of the things that happened, so I had to wake up real early to go to work, and it was a tough job, so it was like I was tired when I got home. And I would just relax with a shortwave radio. I remember many evenings with my back then my Yacht Boy, Grundig Yacht Boy 400 portable, and tuning into Radio Canada International and Deutsche Welle, and one that I listened a lot in the 90s, Radio Vlaanderen from Belgium. So a lot of these stations are interesting. Of course, HCJB. HCJB was my go-to stations, especially on Saturday nights. My Saturday night lineup when I was a teenager was, I'd take the DX100 and then of course the DX302, and I would go in the kitchen, set it up with a piece of wire, and I tuned to the Saturday lineup of HCJB, which included the DX Party Line, musical mailbag. That was my fun Saturday evening listening. Pretty much. I can't say. Of course, HCJB had a big place in my listening experience, and I think a lot of us that come from that time had HCJB in our hearts quite a lot. Um, you know, there were some programs that were appealing to the shortwave listener. There was something exotic about listening to Quito, Ecuador, and South America, and so on. Karyono Wasman, nice to have you here, my friend, from Indonesia. Pretty cool. Really cool to have you here. Legion says that's why I get a lot of comments on that. He says that's why I love your QSL card videos so much, because every card tells its own story. There's so much story on there's I'm scanning my QSL cards right now, and I'm thinking, wow, I should probably do even some specific videos and some specific stories with different QSL cards. Brent, do you find the MLA30 receives better on higher frequencies? I find it's not as sensitive as the regular MLA30 on the lower frequencies. In my case, the MLA30 Plus is equal below about 10 megahertz. For me, it's equal to the original MLA30. So I don't know if it's placement adjustments or what. But the MLA30 Plus for me receives better starting about at 11 megahertz and up. So that's why I always switch between both. But it's interesting because now they're very different, because I put the MLA. So the MLA 30 Plus is horizontal right now, and the MLA 30 original is vertical. And it actually changes a lot and makes my MLA 30 Plus receive a lot better on higher frequencies, but actually not work as well as the MLA 30 on lower frequencies. So it's kind of interesting. But when they were both up and at the same orientation, I would have pretty much the same performance below 10 or 11 megahertz. I would have pretty much the same performance on both. I could not see really a difference, but I did see a difference. When I was in 19 meter band, 15 megahertz, I could see there was a huge difference with the MLA 30 Plus though. What else do we have? My radio videos ran a 1,000 watt pirate station in 1968. Wow. Meet Elmage, any idea who the pirate on 7400 USB on Wednesday night? It was because it was Mixed Radio International, because it was so wide. Only Mixed Radio International is wide like that on the USB. And so it was Mixed Radio International, and I believe I did see also the idea of Mixed Radio International on the HF Underground, which was nice. What else do we have? What else do we have? Let's go down here. Yeah, absolutely. Facebook channel is where it all continues for sure. Official SWL channel. John Pickney, yeah, I believe it comes with the lithium ion rechargeable for the antenna or something like that. So that's probably the reason why they didn't want to have it. Cool one. Nice to have you here. Cool. Yeah, sometimes I forget, but I always try to post it on Twitter also. Where are you located, cool one? What else do we have? I used somebody was asking the other day what they were using to record. And so, you could record in any way you want. So, DJ bought a cassette recorder. I purchased for that purpose many years ago a MP3 recorder, a little voice recorder that has like 32 megs of RAM on it. It records for you can record like 40 hours of audio on that thing. And I remember I used that a lot to record some shortwave broadcasting. Fast load. Nice to have you here from Montreal. What else do we have? KLF Radio is Radio Vatican Radio 7360. Let me try it out here. Anything here? Yeah, not too bad actually. Vatican Radio on 7360. Absolutely. Latin Valley 11940 Radio Exterior de España. Gaetan Belit just subscribed for 3 years to the magazine. Cool. Hope you liked it. Magazine is the messenger. It's from the Canadian International DX Club, CIDX. And you can ask for a sample copy. CIDX Club at yahoo.com. And it's a great place to start and to have radio information. Dijan Brothers Care via Bulgaria on 5900. Matam Bali says, whoa, half and half. The wolf would get drunk if it bit you. Probably. Oh, man. There's other crafter says, Cape Codder was what all the girls in college drank. Yeah, girls like the stuff that's kind of, very easy on the taste of alcohol. They like the sweet drinks or the things that aren't too rough. Ryan Penny received the EQSL from WJHR 15550 kilohertz. Pretty sure they are the only shortwave broadcast that uses USB. It was relatively painful to listen long enough for a reception report, but I persevered. Yeah, that would be the same for me. But yeah, I saw that what you sent me. It is. I don't think there's anybody else in the upper sideband on broadcasting. It's one of those stations, that's. I mean, just look over time. I'm looking at my QSL collection, and I noticed that there are quite a few U.S. broadcasters that appeared for a few years and disappeared. And WJHR, I mean, it's a small operations. I'm still wondering who actually does listen to that station except for us geeks. But MDK2, whoops, I think I just sent some of the official SWL show out on the airwave with my FT8. Oops. Radio videos. FCC did not find me. They pulled a crystal and said, knock it off. They understood I was just having fun. You know. You know. What else do we have? Voice of America, 9740, very strong. Let's check it out here. Yep, not bad at all, also. 9740. That one is from where? It's time for English language lessons. So 9740 is from. Oh, it's from the Wolverton, UK relay. So not bad. Not bad at all of a signal. Wolverton, England. They're using more and more different relays. Mike, WDX50. We'd always try to listen to Radio Luxembourg in the late 70s and early 80s. They played great music, but weren't always easy to receive. It was a tough one on 6090. And the bands were so crowded back then that it made it even more difficult to get some. Gaetan Belil, you know, Joe, that I'm new to listening to the airwaves. I believe that knowledge of Spanish is really an asset. I think to start learning this language because it could help me. There's a lot of Spanish language transmissions, that for sure. And you know, it's like I always say, when you have multiple languages that you understand, it's a great plus on shortwave. You know, I remember once I had an afternoon listening to stations, and somebody came to me and said in comments on the YouTube channel, so you were listening to, you know, that station, that country this afternoon, and all I get is, you know, a few stations in English, and I don't, you know, not really nothing exotic. And it's easy to forget because in my head, French and English, there's no translation. If you speak to me in English, or if you speak to me in French, in my brain is just understanding. It doesn't need to have any translation of any kind. And when that happens, when you know a language enough that it's a natural thing like that, what happens is you suddenly forget that you're listening to something in a different language. And I was like, well, you know, I was listening to all of that, and maybe there's too much noise. And then you start thinking. And I remember one day I said, you know what? I listened that afternoon to 14 different stations. And a lot of them are broadcasting to Africa. And I suddenly realized that more than half of them, I actually listened to their French language broadcast. So for me, that afternoon is, wow, there's tons of stations to listen to. But if I remove the French language broadcasts that person couldn't understand, oh yeah, there's less stations in English only at that time. And that is something you got to realize. And I didn't realize it at the time. It's like the time it was like, you know, there's tons of things to listen to, you know. Jean-Marc Letz. Bonjour et bienvenue de Strasbourg en France. Nice to have you here. What else do we have? John Pickney. John Pickney says, if Rod Stewart was a shortwave listener instead of a model railroader, he's into HO scale. I can imagine The album, every card tells a story. V3 Carapi, nice to have you on board. Fast Eddie in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Jojo, nice to have you here from California, KM6EHD. DGen says, my Saturday radio evening looks like that. 1830 UT, Voice of Vietnam, 19 UT, Radio Taiwan, 20 UT, KBS mailbag. Cool. That's a nice evening. Jerry, watching from Texas. Nice to have you here. Cool that you're enjoying the broadcast. Jim F. from Rhode Island. Nice to have you here. Alan S. Are SDR radios as sensitive as my old Drake SPR4 was? Yes. Yes, the good ones, absolutely. They're really sensitive and really good. Egidarius, what is the phone app you use to look for shortwave schedule? It's called Skywave Schedules. So it is here. Skywave Schedules. And that you just make sure that you update the schedules. And then you can, so I can enter here the frequency I'm listening to, 2740. On the air now. On the air now. Search. And it gives me the stations that I'm listening to. It gives me the Voice of America. So it's really, really nice. Really, really nice app. And it has a lot more today than it used to. You could have your favorites. You have a logbook. You can have the transmitter site and location if you want when you're listening to a broadcast. And so really a lot of stuff in here. It's really, really nice. And so it's probably the best app. It's Android only, I believe, though. I can tell you. Fred Newland says, my daily listening shortwave schedule is very similar to yours. Two other favorites of mine, Radio Austria. Yeah, Radio Austria was nice. Argentina and Brazil's English service when I could receive it. I remember listening a lot to Brazil, the Radio Nacional do Brasil broadcast, or Radio Bras. I remember I got several QSLs from them here. I used to like to listen to those broadcasts in the evening. Brazil in English was fun. OH8BLW. Nice to have you here. Kathleen, when will it be a show on official VHF UHF? I don't know yet. I need to rethink all of this. And with all that's happening, it's complicated. I wanted to... This was the month I was supposed to do a lot of changes here, but it's so complicated that I'm going to wait a little bit until all of that is going to be a little better. DGen 9740, extremely strong in Germany. Yeah, Wolferton in England. Shelly Sykes, nice to have you here, Shelly. Better late than never. Absolutely. Absolutely. Kevin Jane Apollo says, oh no, my PL450 just stopped audio. No speaker or headphone sound. No luck on reset. I don't have a screwdriver small enough to look inside. Bummer. Really? Have you tried removing the battery for a long period of time? You move the battery for a few hours and put them back and see if it changes anything. Because it's the PL450 is a darn good radio. The audio is beautiful and the receiver is so sensitive. Hunter, the software on the screen that I have is called SDR Uno. SDR Uno, and it's running a SDR Play RSPDX receiver. Ecadarius, did anyone used to listen to the Christian Science Monitor on shortwave? They used to have good news programs. Yeah, I remember I remember when they were on the air. They got a lot of frequencies. They were pretty easy to get here in Montreal. Yeah, my native language is French, and I started learning English around 5-6 years old. I mean, they're friends of mine. Mark Rich says he used to flip between Russian and English without thinking. They're friends of mine that sometimes I just talk with friends, and we actually switch from French to English and mix it all in. Don't knock model railroaders. My ham call stands for W8 Pen. So PRR is for Pennsylvania Railroad. Hey, I love railroads. I watched a 2-hour video the other day of a huge model of a train going through. I think it's a club in Ontario that did it. And they put a camera on top of one of the trains on the model that they made. And I mean, I watched the whole thing, seeing the train going into the different directions, different tracks, and all this stuff. I thought it was kind of cool. Madrido DXer says English first language, Spanish second. Today I was listening to REE, who are only doing Spanish broadcasts at the moment. Yep. Rufus Newt knows some French, but my brain wants to process everything in English. Yeah, that is the tough one. When you have a language, but you have to kind of translate in your head what you're listening to, that is tough. And what's tough for me is that because of that, I get, my friends, I get all the time my friends, coming up to me and saying, "Hey, what did he just say?" You're watching a movie in English. It says, "What did he say? What did he say? What just happened? What did he say?" And I freeze. I freeze because in my head, I don't need a translation. In my head, I know what he said, what it means. And I kind of freeze in trying to translate it in French suddenly. I would be a bad, what those guys that translate like as people talk. I would be bad at that. I mean, I would freeze at every 3 words. It's just, and I remember somebody telling me, it's like, is your English really good? Because I mean, you have a hard time translating what he just said. And people don't understand. I said, I don't need to translate. My brain is wired to understand what he said. I don't need to have a translation of it. But translating is suddenly like, okay, well, he just said this, and I search for the correct words and stuff. It's like my brain isn't wired to translate. It's wired to understand the language, and that's it. No, it's not on iOS. On iOS, man, I would need to replug my good old iPhone 5. On iOS, there was a few shortwave schedule apps. Denis Allard, nice to have you here. Do you consider RSP1A, RSPDX, and so on to be good sensitive SDRs, or do I have to consider the likes of ELAD for sensitivity without computer noise? I definitely consider the RSP. I mean, I DX with my RSP 1A. I DX with my RSP DX. It is for me as sensitive and as good a radio as like my ICOM, which is a $2,000 radio. I don't think I would need, because here the lack of knowledge of the ELAD. I mean, does the ELAD have filtering and things that minimize computer noise and stuff that I don't know. I would need to have both side by side to be able to 100% answer the question. My answer is based on the fact that I use it all the time. I can compare it with my ICOM if I want to, or with the Yisu FT450 in the back here. All I can say is that SDR RSPDX, SDR Play RSPDX, is as sensitive as the tabletops I got. That means I don't see what more you would get. Now, not owning and not used an ELAD, I don't know exactly how they would compare with each other. Will there be a edge or something more? I don't know. But honestly, the RSP devices are great. I wouldn't talk that positively. Somebody came to the channel and said, "Well, you're talking positive about SDR Play because you got one for free." And it's like, no, look, I got two for free. One from a fan of mine. I think it was Simon Templar that actually did it, and sent me as a Christmas gift the RSP1A. And I mean, I had never tried any SDR Play devices before the RSP1A. I plugged that thing in, and I mean, I had tried the Soft 66 RTL SDR with up converter, stuff like that. That was okay. I had the Fedry SDR with which was on the network with which was okay. But when I got the RSP1A, it was like, oh, this is different. This is better. This is way better. And with the good words that I gave, and probably the fact that I'm pretty sure that SDR Play did sell quite a few of them because of my good words. Because I constantly see people saying, "I just purchased an RSP1A," after watching your videos and your live shows and you talking so highly about them. RSPDX, same thing. If I'm talking about those, that like I am talking about, is because my personal experience with radio means that these things are amazing. I can tell you that. What else do we have? Yeah, well, it's that, what, DJan, that's like for me listening to Spanish. I have some understanding of Spanish, but when I listen, it's like, well, they're going too fast. I don't get it. But that's because that language, your brain needs to translate. As long as your brain needs to translate a language you're listening to, it's always a difficult thing to do. Mark Cope, Cuban Lady on 11635. For those who like the señorita. So, how good is it? It's, yeah. I hear Cuban señorita sending out the numbers in Spanish. What else do we have? My understanding of language is really French, English, and a little Spanish. And that pretty much is all of it. Gaetan Belil says currently many are talking about coronavirus. There seems to be no translation for that word. No. Coronavirus is the word everywhere in every language. I was listening to a Voice of America transmission in Hausa, which is an African language. And in the middle of the I don't understand a thing, I heard coronavirus. I was like, oh, they're talking about that. It's a great time to make a reception report in a language you don't understand. At 2006 UTC, you were talking about coronavirus. At 2017 UTC, there was mention of coronavirus. Oh, man. Madrid DXer, some sentences translated straight from Spanish to English don't make sense. You have to rephrase in order to somebody to understand. I know other languages have the same problems too. Well, it's the same for French and English. There's a lot of the translations. You can't translate as it is. It doesn't work. The perfect example that shows that is when you're trying to translate with Google Translate. Some phrases, they just are so weird. So, Take care, Pierre Fredio. Fais attention à toi. À la prochaine. Daniela, comparing your SPDX with desktop receivers is all the answer I needed. I'm in and gonna get one while waiting for the Elite satellite. I mean, I think it does. Honestly, if I can compare my RSP1A and RSPDX to my ICOM, my CRD500, you kind of hit the you kind of understand that they're amazing devices. Max Headstrong, nice to have you on board from Michigan. I got another guy the other day. There's one on the channel, but there was another one that came up to me and says, our RSP1A is a little expensive compared to what I would like to pay. And he was, mentioning the RTL as the RV3. I'm sorry, but on shortwave, this thing is crap. It gets signal, yes, but it gets tons of spurious signals because it overloads everywhere also. And it's it's crappy. You're better off with RSP1A directly. He'll have a much better experience out of the box immediately. Plus, there's no, there's the RSP1A. You don't have to install any special drivers. You just download SDR Uno. Once it's installed, you plug in the RSP. It works. And that's it. John Pickney. Je connais québécois et français un peu. Mr. Lucky Train, your mic is great. I'm wondering what webcam you use, if you use a ring light with it. If yes, what size? My webcam is the Logitech C920. Logitech C920. And the for the lighting, I used basic but pretty good lamps with LED bulbs in them. And that's it. The microphone is amazing. I am so surprised at the quality of this audio. Nissan Greenwich. Yeah, well, not all Montrealers are bilingual, but yeah, it's there is some bilingual for sure. What else do you have? MAR, are you not in America? I'm in Canada. Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Oh, I'm sure, Matt. There's a lot of it's interesting because I saw the other day a friend of mine's Facebook group, his personal Facebook, which is really in French. And of course, when I post things in English, they're automatically translated. I looked at the translation and I was like, oh man, that's how crappy translation is when people read my stuff. But I think that's the thing. You're getting the general idea of what it means. Yeah, I think everybody gets the drift in general. There are a few words here and there that sometimes you need to kind of say, It's like when I put the other day when I put soupe au pois. What was the guy? The guy said, what is... And I don't remember the translation it gave him. And he said, what is that type of soup? And I said, oh, it's pea soup. And he said, oh, pea soup. Yeah. He translated really weird. Legion says, here in Germany, almost 70% speak English as a second language. It is compulsory to learn in school since 1970s in West Germany. Yeah, and the GDR, they probably had to learn Russian, for sure. Max Armstrong, good evening, my friend. And the GDR, well, it was Radio Berlin International. Radio Berlin International. That was a pretty easy to get station. They were cool. They would send so many things. Radio Berlin. I miss Radio Berlin. And they would send tons of things by mail. I would get magazines from the GDR, and I get tons of things. G-Bone 1, nice to have you here. OH8BLW, yep, automatic translations, absolutely. Eric Control. In Quebec, they have francophone, anglophones, and allophones. Yep. MAR, I like your realistic scanner back there. Is that the one we could do all kinds of nifty mods? Yeah, absolutely. The Pro 2006. Like Sheldon says, Sheldon and I are in the Canadian provinces of America, North America, that is. So, yeah. Goyotero 1000. Au Canada, je chauffe mon char. En France, je conduis ma voiture. Yeah. But France has a lot of English words for a lot of the French things, I can tell you. There's a lot of angry phones, that's for sure. And angry phones is including both languages. There's angry phones and there's angry phones in the French side too. I can tell you that. Oh man, I don't know what we called. We would call the French version of the angry phones, but they are both there. They are both there. Any more funny scanner stories left? Any more funny scanner stories? Okay, yeah, I got one. I do have one. Yeah, the francophonie. yeah, that could be francophonie. that would be one way of saying it. Francophonie. Oh man. But it's just to say that there's the equivalent of the angry phone on the French side also. That's for sure. Let's not go too much in that direction. OH8, I hadn't heard about the World Radio TV Handbook before, but man, I want that book now after a bit of Googling. Well, it depends on what you want to do, man, because it's a great book for information, but this is not for the new shortwave listener, that's for sure. But for all the information here, uh, for all the information about, it's really a book that is um, a reference for all the very important information about what happened and what is on every station, contact information and stuff like that. But for a shortwave, it's really not for everybody. It depends what you want to do, but it is still a nice book, though. For what it is amazing. You just have to know what it is for. Oh, absolutely, Gaetan Belil. There's less slang Quebecois words in the French language today. 50 years ago, it was very first the Quebec French accent was heavier than today. Even though you can hear Radio Japan French service obviously has somebody from that learned French from Quebec. When they do their French language transmissions, there's a guy there that is in the shows. When he starts speaking French, it is obvious that it's French learned in Quebec just by the way he speaks it. I mean, he speaks it very well, but he still has that little something in the intonation and the pronunciation that tells you, oh, he must come from Quebec, because it sounds like a Quebecois French. But yes, I actually corrected my French a lot. When I grew up, my dad comes from the Saguenay area. His French was, I'll say it, terrible. It was very heavy Quebecois with a lot of slang words, a lot of a lot of and a very heavy accent. And when you grow up, the language, the way you learn to speak it comes from your parents. You speak like your parents speak. So I started speaking French with the same heavy Quebecois accent, the same slang Quebecois words, moi instead of moi, for example. I had a lot of the moi toi that I corrected later on. Now it's moi et toi. But I had to readjust my French. And the way I actually understood that I had to readjust my French language is that I would go in school, and a lot of times I would speak, and somebody would say, "Can you repeat what you just said? I didn't get it." And at first I thought, okay, they're just trying to tease me or something. No, it comes out that after a while I started understanding that my French was very heavy on the Quebecois side, to a point where it was sometimes difficult for some people to understand me. And it stayed with me for a long time. When I was doing tech jobs and fixing computers, immediately people would say, "Oh, you come from the Saguenay area." And I would say, "No, I was born in Montreal. I am a Montrealer." But I had the heavy accent given to me by my parents. So I had to it's almost like having to relearn your first language. Plus, what probably doesn't help, I think, for somebody that speaks more than one language, is the fact that unless you really study it hard, when you speak two languages or more, very often your two languages could be good, but not perfect. It's like you spend a lot of time on that other language. It means you will speak less and have less time on that other language. So in my teenage years, except with my friends, The rest of my life was a lot on shortwave radio and stuff like that, and I would be in English all the time. I'd listen to English shows. I'd watch English TV. I would not watch local French TV. I was always on the American channels watching, the cartoons on Saturday morning, and I would watch movies in English on the. It was like, I would go to the cable channels. It's like, oh, look at that, they're playing James Bond on that NBC channel or CBS or whatever. I would watch that. I would not watch a lot of local French TV. The most of the French language TV I would watch was the news, stuff like that. But I would most of the time spend more time in the English side, which means that also is something, because it's like, yeah, I remember when I got in school, in high school, in English class, it was like, wow, you speak well English. Your English is really good. In French, it was horrible. I was like, through all of my years, French was the bad thing for me in school. When I went to college, in college, it was required to have the French classes, and I was in applied sciences, and then electronics, and I had good grades there. But the one that I had difficulty going through and having a grade that would let me pass was French. I remember one class which I had to read French language texts and then answer questions about that text. It was like, analyzing text, if you want. I didn't pass, but what happened is, I was with there was another guy next to me, and we both had difficulty with the French class. And the teacher came to us, looked at us, and said, "Okay, you guys are failing French," which pissed me off, because it was like, yeah, I'm good everywhere else, and this class is making me, I will have to redo the class. She looked at us and she said, "Look, you guys are failing. If you come on Saturday and do another test, I'll give you another chance." I went on this Saturday. I passed the test. I know I was as bad, if not worse, than the first one. So I was like, I'm failing. My friend in the class didn't show up. When we went the next year, I met it up. We weren't in any classes together, and I met him while I was going in school. He looked at me and says, "Well, did you fail French like I did?" And I said, "No, I got the passing mark." But he failed. And you know what I taught? I taught the teacher what she did. She gave me the passing mark because I made an effort to go there on a Saturday to do the test a second time. Because I'm sure I was horrible. But she probably said, he came on a Saturday, he tried it the second time. I'm not gonna fail him. I'm gonna put just a passing mark. But he didn't show up. He failed. That's kind of interesting. Anyways, enough about language. Eric Cottrell. I had a Realistic Pro 2004 that preceded the 2006. You could do a lot of mods on that as well. Yep, those were great scanners. And what was great about the 2004, 5, and 6, there's a lot of space. It was kind of easy to do. Even someone that was not super good with doing mods could actually do them. I remember it was kind of easy to just, you want to have the cell band, you just had click the diode. You just clip the diode, and that was it. And it was easy to do, even for somebody that's not very good at it. And there was the books. Bill Cheek. Those books were amazing with all the mods. Penniless Plantation. My Texan PL 600 finally made it. Can't wait to see what my first shortwave radio can do. Cool. John Pick, there was used to be something called confidential frequency list for utility DXers. I owned a couple of copies of those. I would get them at a place called Radio Lorenz downtown, and I believe Sheldon was the one selling these books. And I had the confidential frequency list. I purchased that for a few years. There is still one today. It's expensive, but it's a well-known publication. Maybe I should, I'm doing utility column. Maybe I should invest in buying a copy of that. Today there's a thing called Klingenfuss. Is it Klingenfuss? Let me just check it out here. I'll share the link. Klingenfuss Shortwave Frequency Guide publication. Here we go. So klingenfuss.org. And he's got the super frequency list CD and stuff. He's even got a PDF, I think. You know what? I think I'm going to purchase that today. So this is a very complete utility frequency list. I'm just going to share it here. I purchased the book when it was on a book form. Today it's like a CD, searchable CD and PDF. That is a very complete list also. I need to check that out again for sure for utility. OH8 BLW, kind of sucker for all kinds of books in general. Got a bunch of chemistry RL. I am too. I always enjoyed books. I've got the big, where is it? It's here, I think. Look, I refer to this from time to time. I do still look at this quite regularly. So here's an example. So this one's an old one, but the ARRL Electronics Handbook is this is a great book. I mean, if you want to learn not just ham radio and stuff, but electronics, this guides you through everything. It explains it's a complete electronics and amateur radio course in a book. Are there words in Quebec French that do not exist in native French? Yeah, absolutely. In regular French, yeah. There are Quebec slang words that are not technically in the French language, official French language. Hello, my friend from Athens, Greece. Nice to have you on board. Degen says, I can't differ between Quebecois and French, France French. There's a different sound to it. It's like listening to, when somebody asks me what's the difference, I always say, well, it's like US English and British English. The difference is like that. Rufus News sounds like the Ottawa Valley accent in Ontario. Yeah. I mean, you listen to French language people from New Brunswick or Ontario, and it's very unique also. It has its own way of being, Minopu. Gaetan Belil comes from the Laurentians, and my sister has lived in the Quebec region for several years now. Speaks with the accent of Quebec City. Degen, here in Germany, we have different dialects. People from northern Germany have a hard time understanding me because of my dialect. Radio for Peace International. A Québécois with as much accent as a Bordeaux, Toulousan, Marseillais, Lillois can have. There are so many ways to speak French regarding pronunciation. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's the standard French, but I mean, there are French accents from France that are sometimes a little harsh. Like I'm sure anybody in Quebec that speaks a little too much on the heavy side of being Québécois French. Um, there are parts of this the spoken French that probably a French from France would have a hard time understanding. Eric Cottrell, in general, Quebec French is more like the French that was spoken in the 17th century. Well, I do listen to Radio France International regularly, G-Bone One. I like actually when it comes in, I like to listen to Radio France International. It's not my favorite broadcaster though, but it's when they're talking about current affairs, news, and stuff, I do like to listen to Radio France International. My radio videos, just check World Radio TV Handbook, starts at 1983 2017, and my passport to World Band Radio, 1988 2009. I love the Passport to World Band Radio. That was a really good book at the time. Yeah, John Pinckney, Klingenfuss. I just shared the link. It's I need to check it out. The the difference today with books is the fact that it in the 80s and 90s we didn't have a way of getting information except through books. So I would buy a tons of books because that was the way you'd get your shortwave information, honestly. And today the internet is really, really the best resource you can have. Eric Cottrell used the Klingenfuss utility guides for years. I would buy it every few years. Since utilities were not as sensitive on schedules and frequencies as regular broadcasts that change all the time, I would buy it every 3 or 4 years because it was one of those books that was more expensive than the average. One, my favorite calls was the Radio Shack police call. Sounds funny how I pronounced Klingenfuss. Well, I pronounce it as I see it. It probably has a different sound when you try to pronounce it. Eric Cottrell, Scanner Master, did some scanner guys like the police calls. Yeah. Oh man. Oh wait. OH8 says oh yeah, ARRL handbook. That's just an awesome book. Absolutely. It is an amazing. I got an electronic version of a later one from 2000 and I think it's 2017. That's also a book that you don't buy every year because it doesn't change much from year to year. But, you buy it every 10 years or something like that, and there's enough change in it to be interesting to have. Graham Toplin says, my copy of Klingenfuss is also lost in the mail coming from Germany. Posted airmail April 17th, 2020. Wow. Tony Turtle had a Radio Shack scanner HD with 6 meters, 10 meters, 2 meters, 70 centimeters. Dropped it in the river fishing. Made me angry. Oh man, so sad. So sad. Rodrigo Galter, nice to have you on board, my friend from Brazil. I'm listening to the shortwaves with a Stetson PL660. Eric Cattrall wants to learn the Quebec French rather than the standard Paris French. I heard Radio France International a few days ago. Well, last weekend was a kind of beautiful day. I was listening to Radio France with a really good signal, actually on this Sea Crane radio here, from outside in the backyard with just a telescopic. Dark Noise, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. I remember when I did my electronics course. I don't think I got it here. There was that, I think it was Texas Instrument book called Schottky, something like Schottky, whatever. And it had all the chips and all of the schematic of the chips and the way they were built and the reference of all the voltages and stuff. I would go through that just looking at the chips and what they do and their limits and stuff. And, it's like I was fascinated. Breakfast Noon Radio Shack was my only source of books. I was lucky because Radio Lorenz downtown, Sheldon was selling the books there. And it had a very nice selection of books, actually. I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on books there. I love to buy these books and go through them and look at the frequencies and hoping I can hear something from it, because you look at the frequencies, you're like, oh, cool, look at that. There's that frequency for this thing. I'm going to try it, and try to tune in and try to listen. ZS3PV, nice to have you on board, my friend, from South Africa. Cool. And thank you for being here and saying hello. Nice to have you here from South Africa. Yeah, Rick Cattrall. I had the confidential frequency list and Klingenfuss. I remember the confidential frequency list, the first time I ever purchased this. I believe it was CIDX at a booth downtown Montreal at Place Bonaventure. They had I think it was the Salon des Métiers d'Art. And for a while, if I'm not mistaken, in the 90s, CIDX had a booth there trying to promote the club. And of course, when there was a CIDX booth, there were also a lot of books. And I think the first ever time, I'm pretty sure, the first ever time that I purchased that book was going at that thing with my parents. I think it was when my dad wanted to go there, and I saw the CIDX booth, and I actually got the confidential frequency list from there at that time, long time ago. Oh man. G1 used to go to Amfest and buy all the old books and magazines. Don't forget, guys, if you want to have old magazines of radio, there's that website, the American Radio History site. Here, this is a amazing place for radio, but electronics and all the old books. It has books that go to the 1920s, 30s. It has all the what's the a lot of the radio books from the time, including Monitoring Times. I believe there's some there. There's the name it, even the electronics books, the magazines and stuff, all in PDF format there. Check that out. If you want to have things to read for the ages, look at that. I like to go and check out the old radio books from like the 50s, 40s, and read them and see all the ads in them and stuff. It's crazy. Mark Rich in the UK, Shortwave magazine was a must buy during the 80s each month. We look forward for frequency, numbers, and stories. There still is, for those that miss monitoring times, there's the electronic version that is pretty much like monitoring times, called the Spectrum Monitor. The Spectrum Monitor is the equivalent of monitoring times, and it's a great magazine. I subscribed for the past few years. I still am. I still have my subscription. Every month I read the Spectrum Monitor magazine, so get it in your email. And it's if you remember, for those that remember monitoring times, it's equivalent to monitoring times. The Spectrum Monitor. Arthur's Crafter's Kitchen. Passport was the best. I don't think I'll ever buy World Radio TV Handbook again, because it's not because it's bad, because I'll never be able to afford it again. It is expensive. But the what I would say is that it depends what you do. I got a few people that were mad because I told them that I don't think the World Radio TV Handbook is a book for everybody. And people come back and they're mad, and it's like, I'm sorry, but it's expensive. And if you need very detailed information and contact information, yes, it's totally worth it. It is an amazing book. But it's not a book for a shortwave listener that just listens to casual shortwave and that's it. It is not. And I cannot tell people that are shortwave listeners or newbies, oh, get the World Radio TV Handbook. No, that's expensive. And it's not for the average shortwave listener. It's for very specific. It is a broadcast reference. It's called the Directory of Global Broadcasting. I mean, if you're in broadcasting, you need it. If you are intense in writing and getting information about stations, get it. If you're just a shortwave listener, casual QSLer, just want to have information about shortwave, that's not the book for you. It's expensive, and it's not gonna be what you want. Passport to World Band Radio was that. Passport to World Band Radio was a book for the average shortwave listener. It was the book that would be the reference, easy to understand, with the blue pages for the schedules. No wonder it went away, because what happened with Passport is that it was replaced. Passport is truly gone because of the internet. The internet replaced what you wanted to know and what you wanted to have as information, that Passport would give out. Today, the internet, you have the radio reviews. I got radio reviews on my channel, and there's other channels with radio reviews, plus shortwavelistening.com, plus the schedules. The blue pages are cool, but the thing is, you got all the schedules updated regularly on shortwave, on the internet. So, the internet killed Passport very much. Where the World Radio TV Handbook, the internet does not replace the World Radio TV Handbook in what it is as a reference. It's a different thing, but it's a very niche and unique book. It's not for the average shortwave listener. René Charbonnier, take care. Good night. Stay safe. Cool one. It's ironic to hear that radio books have been replaced by internet resources, yet we still listen to the radio when we are online streams. But the online streams don't replace shortwave, because most shortwave stations do not have online streams. Yeah, Eric Cottrell, the Texas Instrument TTL data book. Yeah, that's it. It was a yellow book. I remember that yellow brick Nixon Greenwich says, I love speaking Quebecois French in Paris. It just bugs them for some reason. Oh, man. Jibon says he keeps copies of the Tube Data Handbook. You know. John Pickney says, I still have the 1980 ARRL handbook. I wanted the 1979 Fredericksburg, Virginia amateur radio Christmas party. Oh, wow. The next year's party was more memorable. A drinking contest between W4. Oh, man. Drinking contest. That's always kind of... Northern Dawn still has a realistic Pro 70 scanner. Just need a power supply for it. 45 unit. Nice to have you on board. Long live Tom Neatle. I don't know if you pronounce it. Yeah, top secret secret government frequency guide. I remember that book. I remember, because there was a limit. I think there's a limit of money, but I remember when I would read, I would see ads of all the books that existed for radio and shortwave. I wanted to have them all. I wanted to have all the books. John Pickney, all the monitoring times are there, yeah, and the other one that was popular communications. All of them are there also. It's a great place to check out. Very cool site. And there's a lot more than that. There's electronic stuff. There's so many things. Mike WDX50 as the last monitoring times. Was surprised to see the cover that said goodbye and good luck. I believe there are books from the UK, Northern Dawn. Also, there are books from other. It's not just. I don't think it's just from US. Yes, they would call themselves like that too. Passport to Roll Band Radio, the TV guide of shortwave listening. Degen says, I am obsessed and addicted to QS selling at the moment. I wrote about 8 reports this week and last week 7. You're in that phase where I was at the time. Matt says, excellent breakdown of Passport versus World Radio TV handbook situation. It is too bad. I bet if Passport made a website, they could probably still be around. If they would have done a website that would have replaced the book with, some way of having, they could have done an imitation of Blue Pages, searchable Blue Pages on the website, and they would have been able, which was impossible with Passport, because Passport was cool. The Blue Pages, I don't know how many times I could, listen to stuff and know what it was thanks to the Blue Pages, because once again, in the 90s, put yourself back in the 90s. There's no schedules online. It doesn't exist. It's not like that. The internet isn't there for that. So when you listen to a station, it's either you listen for half an hour and wait for an ID because you don't know who they are, or and sometimes the signal would fade and so on, and you never knew who they were. And plus, knowing what was on the air at a certain time also. Well, Passport's Blue Pages was arranged in a way that it was a grid with time, and in the Blue Pages you had bars, different types of bars, that each bar, the way that it was printed, told you what language it was. So a full bar, a black bar, was English, but there was a black bar with a line on the top was French, a line at the bottom was Spanish, and so on. They had a creative way of getting languages across with the different types of patterns in the bars that would be on that schedule, that grid. And so what you would do is, oh, I'm listening to something in French on 15240 at this time. Well, you would go to 15240 page. You would look at the time UTC, go down and look at, oh, French at this time on this frequency. Oh, that's, Radio France International. You would know what you were listening to. Problem with the passport, because that's always a problem on shortwave, is that schedules change because of the schedule seasons. Frequencies do change. And when you purchased it, it was, I don't know, I would say at best 80%, 85% accurate when purchased brand new. But as you would go through the year, it would be less and less accurate. And sometimes it was, I would say at the end of the year, it was maybe 55, 60% accurate. Some of the frequencies they would get from the broadcasters that would say, well, we're going to use that frequency. But the problem is, if there was interference or anything, a broadcaster could change frequency. And it was difficult sometimes to really find. It didn't have the correct information or the information that you were looking for, because as the months went by, the information was getting outdated. And so, the internet is a great source for that, because the internet actually has the schedules updated so often that it's very accurate most of the time. Not 100%, but it's pretty good, Eric Cottrell, yeah, the yellow cover, eh? Oh, man. Archer's Out of Crafter's Kitchen. So glad I saved my old issues of Passport and World Radio TV Handbook, and often pull them out and read radio reviews. Passport was amazing for radio reviews. I really, really enjoyed reading the radio reviews, and they had some special pages also that, or you could actually purchase. Some radios had their very technical reviews. I remember I purchased the one for the Kenwood R5000 back in the day, because it was very, very technical. Oh, H8BLW, take care, my friend. It's nice to have you here. Very crazy. Matt says the internet is very much responsible for my shortwave and ham radio hobby. There's so much to learn, and I'm not sure how I would have learned it on my own in the 80s, probably at a much slower pace anyway. That's for sure. It took a lot of time for me to really, honestly, to really learn some of the things that I know today, because if you didn't have a book that explained it, or some way of getting that explanation, you were pretty much, it was a hit and miss thing. And I always talk about when I didn't know anything about propagation, and I thought, I put 100 feet of wire, and then 3 days later, I can't hear what I was hearing, and I think, my antenna's broken. My wire must be broken somewhere. I'll put another 100 feet, and it's like, no, it's propagation. I didn't know anything about it. There's stuff like that. There's a lot we didn't know. There was a lot of. It was nice to have. There's a few stations on shortwave that had these little guides. One of them, Radio Netherlands, had excellent series of guides about shortwave radio antennas and so on. But if you didn't have that, you were just slowly learning. And since I didn't really know anybody around me that did the hobby, it was, my knowledge probably started getting better when I joined my first club, which was the Club en Cours du Québec that existed back then. And I remember then I joined CIDX at some point. CIDX for a long time was an off and on thing for me. John Pinkney, there was also the Broadcasting Stations of the World book published by, yeah, I remember that book. I remember that book, Broadcasting Stations of the World. Yeah. Mike WDX 50 says radio clubs were a great way to learn in the hobby. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Brother Stare drinking contest. Oh, God. Drink every time he's wailing or moaning. You have to drink every time he says the end is near. You're drunk after half an hour. Oh, man. My radio videos, just talk about books made my day. Fun talking about it. John Pickney says, one thing to talk about is sending them any old QSLs or books you may have. Ask before sending, though. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, man. Mike Rich, the not knowing and waiting for the station ID was part of the fun, wasn't it? Oh, absolutely. It was part of the fun. Looking up in a book was useful, but always felt like cheating. Yeah, but it was helpful, But absolutely, there was part of it was, that, and with propagation conditions, and sometimes that station being very, 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 jam packed on the bands, stuck in between so many stations. Sometimes you had to listen more than one day. It's like, okay, well, that 0200 on that part of the dial or that frequency. I'm going to have to check tomorrow again at 0200. I didn't understand the thing what they said when they ID'd. Oh, man. Degen, I especially like postal reports because I include little goodies such as stickers. Furthermore, I think that it increases the chance of actually receiving a card. But I am sometimes afraid that the letters will actually get lost, especially if I write North Korea. That's a big thing that happens a lot. I never made an account of all I sent and what I got back. But I sent thousands of letters in the 80s and 90s. There were several hundreds of those that I never got a reply back. I don't even know if they actually got the letter. Did it reach that destination? Because, it's two-way. Your letter might not make it there. Or if your letter does make it, the other thing was that letter from over there to here, is it going to make it also? Because that one can also get lost. So it was possible to get that they would reply, but you never got the letter back, There's so many things. I still remember Voice of Nigeria when I got my QSL. I was with my friend Jean-Pierre. He also listened to Shortwave back then. We made the reception report together at the same time on the phone. And I remember it was June. It was a warm June day. And I was getting Radio Nigeria in English on 7255. My friend didn't understand English, so I helped him do the report. We mailed that letter, that reception report, together in the same mailbox the next day. And it took a long time. And we sent it in June. I still remember the reply because there was a snowstorm on that day. So it's February, and we didn't have school that day because there was a really big snowstorm. And I remember opening the mailbox, and there was a big envelope, and it came from Nigeria. And I saw Voice of Nigeria. I was so happy. I mean, it was long. It was 8 months from June to February. And I was jumping up and down. I was like, oh, wow, Nigeria, And I remember there was a magazine in the envelope. And there was my card, that QSL card from Voice of Nigeria. And the first thing that I thought was, oh, maybe my friend Jean Pierre is going to get it today too. Maybe he's got the reply also. So I call him up and say, hey, I got that. Remember we did the report for Nigeria, blah blah blah. I got the letter today. And so he goes to the mailbox and he sees there's letters, but he doesn't have Nigeria. So he's like, well, I didn't get it. And I said, well, maybe there's some delays. You're going to get it in the next week or so or something. And I remember him getting real mad because a month, 2 months later, he was still rambling I didn't get that Nigeria QSL. I'm mad. I'm going to write them a letter because I'm mad. I was like, don't be mad at in a station because you didn't get the QSL. It's not their fault. Maybe they did reply like they did to mine. It's just that the letter got lost somewhere. And but I remember every time he would see my QSL from Nigeria, I was like, yeah, how come you got that QSL and I don't? It was just funny. Mike Thornton, nice to have you here. WC0L in Kansas. It was just crazy. Sorry. What else do we have? Mike WDX50. Yeah, the white papers. That's what. Getting the white paper receiver reviews from the Radio Netherlands. They had a lot of receiver reviews, and they had a lot of technical stuff that you could ask. You would just ask for it. They would send it to you. That was really cool. Take care, Eric. Stay safe, my friend. Have a good supper. What else do we have? John Pinkney, my first DX club was the National Radio Club. I was a member for about 5 years until I went on the other side of the receiver. Cool. Yeah, Mark Rich, nostalgia script in. But we'll have newbie stuff. We'll keep it for the next show at the latest. I'll put down some info anyways because I wasn't super prepared for the newbie stuff, as I thought about it pretty last minute. It's going to give me time to write down stuff to focus, and let's focus our next show Wednesday on newbie and helping everybody in the hobby that's starting out. A lot of books and a lot of stuff in here for sure. Mika Dalmage. It is waiting 25 minutes for the top of the hour station ID just to have the signal fade happens more often than you think. Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. Noodles, KC2 JLI. Stolen stamps. Stolen envelopes because they would look if there's money or anything important in it. And a lot of countries you would write to were more difficult. Actually, that was the cool thing of the passport to World Band Radio. They would actually tell you, oh, by the way, if you write to that country, there's a lot of mail theft. So you might not have a reply, or you might need to try several times. And they would have information like, we had to send 3 reports before we got a reply, and all the info also of, what you could ask and get from that station, stickers, pins, and so on. Good evening, Gaëtan Belil. Fais attention à toi. À la prochaine. Dejan says, I keep track of all my reports in an Excel spreadsheet. I mark whether the report was postal or by email, and when I got the card, and I always take a pic of the postal reports. Cool. I would do a sheet of paper and would write down the station name, the date that I sent, and when I would receive the reply. I'd write the date of the received report or QSL, but a lot of them didn't come back. It was there's in so many stations I wrote dozens of times without having any reply ever. John Doe noticed many online streaming receivers using loop antennas. Why few long wires? Well, for several reasons. First of all, the long wires take space, and not everybody has a lot of space for a long wire. And second, loop antennas are often much better choice for low noise. So long wires are nice, but they can pick up a lot of the noise around you. So loop antennas are great for that. Look, I got a wire antenna in the backyard, and I can tell you I don't use it anymore since I've got the loops. They receive much better. Take care, Mark Rich. John Pickney, looking forward to moving to the Nevada desert with a few locals nearby, maybe even put up a beverage. Nice big long antenna here. DJan dreamed lately that I needed to go to the federal police because I received so much foreign mail. They told me that I must not write to North Korea. That is something that you think about when you start writing a lot. I mean, I remember the 80s. Imagine in the 80s when I was starting writing to East Bloc countries. I mean, it was the Cold War. For sure, the government here had some file on me. I'm pretty sure. I would be surprised it didn't have some kind of file saying, well, this guy is receiving, letters from Eastern Bloc countries. Nissan Greenwich, bonne nuit. Take care, my friend. So I will say good night and goodbye to everybody. We've been on for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm going to take it easy for the rest of the night. Do some radio listening. And of course, I probably will post some of the stuff I'm listening to in the Facebook group. And hope that you enjoyed the show today. We will focus on newbie and on everything for the new shortwave listener in the next show. And we will have a lot of information to try to help you out with there. I think it's going to be best anyway, because I will take a lot of notes in trying to, make the show as best as possible for that. So good night, everyone. And hope you enjoyed the show. DJan says, I'm going to watch some of your QSL videos before going to bed. Maybe I should focus on some specific QSLs and do a couple of videos with that. But I get a lot of people saying they love these. They love the stories behind the cards and the behind all of it. So take care, my friends. Stay safe. And always fun to have all of you here. And see you once again, 2 shows a week. We are here on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 0 UTC. And on Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 20 UTC. And we'll see. Maybe a Sunday show will happen. If it does, of course, I'll let everybody know. David says, next week you may transmit on FT8 and try to log some QSLs with the hams in the room. Yeah, why not? That'd be cool. And I can even fire up the FT8 here and in WSJTX and see if I can receive your call. It'd be nice. So pretty cool to have you on board for sure. So take care. Stay safe, everybody. And see you next time. Bye-bye, my friends.